to another episode of Connections. Today we'll be speaking to a lovely Irish soprano, Leah Barniville. So hello, Lee. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, how are you?
It's so nice to see you. I'm doing good here. How about you in Ireland?
Good, yeah, great.
Tell us a little bit about just growing up there and your childhood in Ireland.
Oh, Ireland's such a nice place to grow up. I think it's such a friend. Everyone here is so friendly, and it's really nice. Apart from now the weather, we don't have the best weather in the world. But I'm 19 now, and I loved being a kid, and I loved school. I loved everything to do with life in general. I spent a lot of my free time, obviously, on stage. As some people may know, I'm a classical singer. I'm a classically trained soprano. But I spent a lot of my childhood on stage in stage school, and I really just loved everything that I did as a child. Gave my all to, and I loved being a kid. I just loved growing up.
So tell us, you mentioned stage school. So was that kind of like your primary, your kind of in addition to your regular classes, you have
so basically it's extracurricular activities. And it's basically a school that you go to after school and you learn how to dance, sing, and act. So I don't know what they call it over there, maybe theatre school?
Sure. Probably something. Yeah.
But I loved it, and I played loads of roles in shows, and there's obviously plenty of shows that I didn't get roles in, which was just as fine. I loved anything. If I was on stage, I didn't mind what I was doing. I loved everything. I just loved the buzz that I got after it, like after coming off stage. But yeah, now I'm actually teaching in stage school, and I'm teaching in a stage school
really?
that I grew up in. Yeah, I'm teaching dancing. So yeah, it's really nice to see now all the little kids exactly where I was when I was their age, and then they'll grow up, and maybe some of them will end up pursuing a career in it like myself. So that'd be really cool. It's just nice to see them grow. Yeah.
Is it the same school that you were a student that you're teaching at?
Yeah, so I went to a few when I was younger. I was always doing something, never ever bored. I was one of those kids who just couldn't sit still and relax. I drove my parents demented. But yeah, I'm teaching in one of the ones that I used to be in. Yeah.
That is super cool. I love those full circle moments.
Yeah, it's so nice. And even now seeing, because I teach from 3 years to, I think the oldest is 17 or 18. And it's really nice because when I was in the stage school myself as a senior, as a teen, those teens who are now teens were only babies. So I've seen them literally, I remember helping some of them backstage or on stage, and now I'm teaching them. It's so cool. Now they're huge, and I just don't even recognize some of them. I'm like, oh no, and I know who they are, but I'm like, you aren't the same person anymore. But it's so nice seeing them like complete, like they've all grown into young men and women, and they're all amazing. And it's really good. Stage school is really good for character development and confidence, and it's just a really nice little community in a community. It's lovely. It's a lovely atmosphere.
That's great, because you're mentioning like the music industry can be a little bit rough at times, but if you really grow up with that nice supportive system.
Yeah.
So did you start dancing then, or were you singing first?
So, right, I was singing since I think I was singing before I could talk.
Okay.
Singing has always been my thing. I have always loved dancing. When I was younger, I loved, when I was like 7, 8, I would have said I loved singing and dancing just as much. But then I started getting more into singing, and obviously I put a lot of time into it. So I ended up preferring singing, obviously. But I really love dancing. As I said, I teach dancing. I also teach singing as well, but not in the stage school. I teach singing like one-to-one lessons, and I do workshops as well online on Zoom, obviously at the moment, because we can't do in-person lessons. And I have people from not just Ireland, I have them from Scotland, loads of different places. It's really cool. It's nice to be able to connect with people, because in a way we are in so many ways we're very unlucky with the pandemic, but we have a few things that we would have never got to experience before if we didn't have the pandemic, such as like teaching online and technology. We are so lucky to have it, because although it may not always be our best friend, we are very lucky to have it, because we got to connect with so many, like you and I wouldn't have been talking right now. Probably if we didn't have technology, we wouldn't be talking.
Exactly.
So it just connects people from everywhere, and it's just so nice to have, even though it is a curse at some points, but we're so lucky to have it, really. But yeah, we're just blessed, really, I think.
No, absolutely. I agree. It was weird because, like I've said before, we've always had the technology, but it just seemed like we never would have set up this call, right?
We've never
Oddly enough.
used it properly. We've never used it. Obviously, hopefully now after the next year, hopefully is over, we'll never have to Zoom call again, hopefully. But we are really lucky to have it. It's such a good resource to have.
Yeah, and all the online concerts and everything. I mean, obviously the people that have been doing it before, like this was just like business as usual, but for the rest of us, it's just been learning. And
yeah, exactly. Like I'm sure some industries do use online facilities a lot more than us in the arts would. But I think we've really caught up to a lot of people now, because we've gotten really good as a community. We've gotten really good at, we overnight almost just switched everything online and started doing virtual concerts, fundraisers, whatever it was. We've kept ourselves busy. I think we've definitely kept ourselves busy a lot, like when we couldn't be live, but we're still working away.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know, like you keep hearing and you see these videos, like people are so bored, and I don't know, I have not experienced that during.
Me neither. I haven't been bored at all. And I finished school, so I did my leaving cert. Well, I didn't do my leaving cert. I got predicted grading because we couldn't sit our exams last year. They were due to be in June, but we ended up finishing school in March, and I haven't seen the school again. Actually, I was brought back in at Christmas time, but other than that, I've been in the school once since then. And I finished up in March, and we had predicted grading, and I got my college place, but I decided to defer it for the year to see what I could do with my music career. Now, I'd always planned on doing this because I skipped. We have a transition year, which we can choose to do or choose not to do. It's a fourth year in secondary school.
Okay.
So I think it would be high school for you.
Yeah.
So we can choose to do it or not to do it. And I chose not to do it so I could take the gap year after school before I started college to work on my singing career. That had always been the plan. Now with COVID, I haven't been able to do everything that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I do feel I've made the most of what I could do with my time.
Yeah.
Which is the main thing, honestly. I've been kept busy, and I like you, I haven't had a second where I've been bored. There hasn't been a week where I haven't been doing something. I think there's always something to do. You can always find something for yourself to do, I think. If you really want to, you can always self-improve somehow. But yeah, even though I haven't been bored this year, I am really excited to start college now in September. I'll be studying biomedical science, which is a bit of a difference. Okay. Yeah. I decided to have just a degree to have a backup plan, just in case, because with this industry, it's very fickle and it's very competitive, as you mentioned earlier. So yeah, it's just, and I've always had an interest in biology and medicine, and yeah, I just thought it was perfect. So that's my plan now for next year. Well, I'll keep singing on the side as well, obviously, but that's my plan academic-wise.
No, that's really brilliant to have that, other option. I'm always interested to see what, people, if it's like a 100%, I'm going to go to school for music, and you don't. Yeah. And I think there's really benefits for either. So either, you have this other option you can do, and then you're obviously going to keep singing, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to live without singing.
So let's go back. You said you're teaching, and I think one of the fun things about teaching is you kind of really cement the concepts to yourself also.
Yeah.
So when you were younger, who were the people that you were looking up to? There's so many amazing singers in Ireland.
Yeah, there is. We have amazing singers in Ireland. But my inspirations when I was young, when I say that, I mean around between the ages of 5 and 11-ish. I really looked up to Idina Menzel and Christian Chenoweth. I loved them because I loved Wicked. I've always been a big musical theatre fan, always. And they were two huge inspirations for me. I idolized them. And then when I turned 9, okay, so there's a bit of a transition stage between musical theatre and classical. My interests kind of shifted, whereas, but I still loved them both. But I kind of introduced the classical style into my what I'd listen to.
Yeah.
I went to see Catherine Jenkins live with my dad. And for those who don't know her, she's a Welsh mezzo-soprano. And I went to see her live in the O2 Arena in Dublin. And she was amazing. And I just fell in love. From that second, I have admired her. I still do. I love her. I follow her every move. She's a huge inspiration to me and has been since the very first time I saw her on stage that day. And yeah, those three are huge to me. But then when I was young, now I'd say, well, when I started in the stage school, which I would have been about 5, there were always, obviously the older girls in the stage school were huge inspirations to me as well. I think every little girl and boy who is it couldn't be anything. It could be football or stage school. It doesn't matter. It can be anything. You're always going to look up to the people who you aspire to be, or where you aspire to be, I think.
Yep.
So yeah, those people were the building blocks. And then obviously the likes of the more famous people like Catherine Jenkins and Idina Menzel, they all helped too. But yeah, I think everyone who I've met along my journey somehow has inspired me. So it's really, I'm just thankful to everyone who I have ever come across, I think.
And kind of keeps pushing you to that next level, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you know Catherine Jenkins, or was it just kind of like this big show is coming, we're just going to go check it out?
No. So my dad had started to listen to her. I don't know if he always listened to her. I've never actually asked him that, but my dad loves classical music as well. And he just said to me one day, I remember it was a Christmas concert, but it was coming up to Christmas. And he said, oh, I have 2 tickets. I don't know if he won them or if he had bought them or someone gave them to him. I don't remember. But he just said, oh, would you like to come with me? And I said, he showed me a video or two of, now I don't think he showed me her classical stuff, but maybe her Christmas songs that were going to be in the concert. And I was like, yeah, sure. She was wearing a gorgeous, pretty dress. And I thought, why not? Why wouldn't I want to? So I remember walking in, and I had only ever been to one concert in that arena before. And I was a lot younger. So I thought it was so cool going into the huge, big stadium. And then, yeah, I loved it. I loved the concert. And I remember coming home in the car and being so excited to tell my mum and my nanny about the concert and about how I loved it. And I got in a program, which I still have upstairs. I still have the one from the first concert I went to. And I've since seen her live, and I loved it just as much. Every time I've seen her, I've loved her just as much.
I think she's a great role model for kids too, because she's also a very smart, like, businesswoman. You'll see some people just do one album and they kind of fade away, but she's really consistently kept it up. Yeah.
She is. Yeah. And she's a great role model. She's just so positive. Everything, I feel like everything around her is just positive. Now, obviously, I'm sure there's things in her life that aren't the most positive things, because everyone has something. Yeah. But I feel like she's just really good at uplifting moods. Like, if you follow her on Instagram or on Facebook or anything, all of her videos and all, she really just makes you feel at home when you're watching her. So I love that. I just think that's such a good way. She has such a good way with her followers, and that's just honestly the goal, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So another wonderful soprano that I guess was maybe a bit of a mentor to you is the lovely Ember Berry. So you guys recorded something together. How did you guys meet?
This is actually a funny story. So I was invited to a stage school to do a show with them. I wasn't in the stage school, but I had been invited to do a contemporary dance, so like a lyrical dance, in their show. And I had no idea. I knew what the song was. It was The Blower's Daughter, which is actually on YouTube. The video is on YouTube if anyone's interested in watching. But it was a dance to The Blower's Daughter, and Emer actually showed up on the day to sing. And I was like, I didn't know who, like, this was the first time we met. I had no idea who she was. And I was doing the dance on the stage, and I came off and I said, I saw her with the man who was singing, and I thought, I was like, oh, are you singing this song? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm dancing to it. I literally remember. I was like, oh, I'm the dancer. But then I had also been asked to sing a song in the show, and it was No Surprises by Radiohead, but it was a classical version. And I remember coming off stage after the sound check, and Emer said to me, she was like, "Was that you singing?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Oh wow, you have some voice." Okay, so that's where it started. And then I said goodbye to her in the lobby on the way home, and then she had held an EP launch in Dublin. And I went in with my dad to see her. Me and my dad loved our little outings, classical evenings. And I went to see her, and we got a picture, and then we just stayed in contact after that then. And that's how it happened. And she invited me to sing with her on her track Nella Fantasia, which was amazing. It was the first time I'd really been asked like to collaborate with someone. So it was really cool, and the video was gorgeous. I loved it. Yes. It was amazing. Yeah. I loved every second of making it as well. And Emer's so lovely. I've worked with her since on a good few things. And yeah, we're in contact all the time. Like, yeah, she was definitely another inspiration to me, definitely.
Yeah, she's amazing. We love Emer. Tell us a little bit now about some of the roles. You've obviously been in stage school. You mentioned like, getting some of those roles. So what were the ones that you wanted, and maybe some of the ones you'd like to do in the future?
Okay. So, we'll start recently. In 2019, I did my last show because I was going into my final year in school, and I had to take that off for exams to study. So the summer of 2019 in June, I played, which was so cool. I played Zendaya in The Greatest Showman. Do you know Zendaya's part? Anne? Yeah, nobody really knows her name, so I'll just say. Yeah. But her name was Anne. And that was amazing, an amazing show. I loved it. The cast were so nice. The primary cast were amazing. We were all good friends. It was local, kind of. We had a very local based cast, so I knew everybody who was in the cast, almost everybody. So it was really good. We ended up being like a family by the end of it, which generally is what happens when you do a show with a big production. You end up a big family at the end, and then your heart's breaking walking away at the end, which is exactly how it was. The only thing about this is I still see some of the people that I was in the show with, so it's grand. And we're hoping to maybe redo it again in the future, hopefully. Other than that, I have played Ariel in The Little Mermaid, which was really cool. We did it on skates, so I was on skates for the first half of the show until
like figure skates. No, roller skates.
Roller skates. Yeah.
I was about to be so excited. I'm like, wait, you're a figure skater?
No, I'm not a figure skater, but I did have to brush up on my skating skills, and I have to say, because when I was younger, I'd fly along, and then I got in them in rehearsals, and I was like, oh my goodness. So I did have to do a bit of practicing, but that was so much fun as well. I sang this song, Part of Your World, on skates, which was really good. It was so cool. I really enjoyed that show, and again, big family vibes the whole time.
Now, did you do like the stage version? Because there's a couple other songs in that. You did the stage version, yeah.
It was actually a pantomime.
Okay.
So it was kind of a mixture of. Pantos are a big part of Irish culture.
Yeah.
So it's basically they'll do the musical, but then they'll throw in random pop songs or old songs. So I think one of the songs was what's that ABBA one? It's like give me a minute. That song. Yeah, that was just in the middle of the show. So yeah, it was crazy, but it was really good. And then apart from that, I've played Fiona in Shrek, Veruca Salt in Willy Wonka. I've played Matilda. I've played Cosette in Les Mis. So yeah, I've kind of ticked a lot of boxes in fairness, but in the future, my dream role, all-time dream, would be Christine Daae in Phantom of the Opera. I think every soprano would love to play her at some stage. But otherwise, I'd love to be Cosette again. And there's so many roles of young kids. Like, I'd love to play Matilda again, but obviously I'm never going to play Matilda again because I am 19 years old. But yeah, definitely Christine Daae is one I'd love to tick off my goal list. So well, maybe hopefully in the future, we'll see.
Absolutely. Yeah. You could do that one great. So the big moment in your career so far that we have to talk about, of course, is Britain's Got Talent. So tell us a little bit about that. Were you kind of the only one from the stage school that went out and tried out for the show, or were there other kids that did too?
Yeah, so basically the way it happened with Britain's Got Talent was my mum actually saw on Facebook, I think it was, that they were closing their auditions entries for that year. And I remember I'd come home from school one day and we were having dinner. We were just sitting right there. That's why I'm pointing. And I forget that you can't see what I'm looking at. But she was saying, do you want to send something in? And I was being a moany 14-year-old teenager. I was like, there's no point. Like, it won't, nothing's going to come of it, but we can if you want. And she was like, no, I think you should. And I was like, okay, we will. And she was like, what do you want to send in? And I was thinking, oh, I can record a song. She was like, no, I think we have the one, because I had been in the school talent show just a few months before that, and I actually won. So we decided to send in that video that we already had. And in my head, I was thinking, they're not going to even like it. But yeah, we just decided to send in the thing from the talent show, the video from the talent show. And I ended up being called. And the way my mum told me was, I had got in the car after school. And she turns to me and she goes, guess who rang? And I was like, who? I thought she was going to say my auntie or something, right, about bringing us on a day out or something like that. And she turns out, Britain's Got Talent. And I was like, what? The two of us just screaming in the car. It was really, really cool. So yeah, we didn't go through our stage schools or anything. It was kind of an individual, it was an independent choice. Obviously with a bit of help from my mum, I did it because I was only 14. But yeah, that was really cool. And then I ended up getting to the semi-final. So I made it through the auditions, which was amazing. I will never forget the feeling of walking out onto the stage for my audition and looking down and seeing the judges. It was like, you know, you're watching, I don't know if you watch Britain's Got Talent, but if you're watching American Idol and it flips to a point of view and you can see the judges, that's what it felt like for me. I felt like I was watching the TV. It was absolutely insane. So surreal, but so incredible. Amazing. And all of the crew were lovely. We were assigned like an individual researcher, which was like a kind of a manager of me. So I had my specific one and someone else could have a different one. And they were all lovely. They were amazing. As a team in general, could not say a bad word about them. They were so good. And they really were really good to me and my mum, really good. And then I obviously made it through the audition, and there was another stage which was called the producer's cut. And I have never been more nervous in my life that day. We were there. Yeah, we were there for like hours and hours. I think it was about 10 hours we were waiting for like to hear the result, because they were calling us in groups, and I was one of the last groups. But I was actually put in with one of I met this girl on the day who she's now a good friend of mine. Her name's Destiny, and she's from Malta. And we were actually put in the same group, and from there we've literally become really good friends. And she lives in Malta. So yeah, we have plans to meet up hopefully after the pandemic. We've been planning it for ages. We've been always saying, oh, we should see each other, but we haven't actually been able to do it just yet. But yeah, we've been great friends since, and it was a really nice experience to have someone who was my age, who we get along really well. And even in the semi-final, she was on my day as well. So we got to do the whole thing basically together after the audition, which was amazing. And the semi-final day was so hectic. I didn't even have the chance to get nervous, to be honest with you. I was on the stage before I could even remember where I was, to be honest. I was pulled left, right and center, but all like for like costume, for loads of fun things, like and yeah, it was really, really good. It was just an amazing experience in overall. Like, I'll never forget it.
And how was that for coming back to your school and like, you know, kids that knew you? Obviously classical, we really want to bring it to the younger generation. So how did people kind of take seeing you do that?
So everyone thought it was so cool. The community organized a homecoming party for me, which was amazing. It was a street party, so loads of the kids from the stage schools that I was in came, and the teachers all organized it. And there was a few like independent people in the village who just wanted to organize a street event. And yeah, it was amazing. I was brought up in a fancy car, like an old style car, and I was sang on the stage. They had a kind of like a gig rig, so a big stage on the back of a truck, that I sang on just in the middle of the village. Like, it was class. It was so unusual, but really cool. And I kept thinking, this is all for me. Like what? I'm just me. I'm just Leah. And there was hundreds of kids lining up to get my autograph and everything. It was so cool. It was surreal. Like everyone who watched it really enjoyed it, and they were so supportive. Overall, like everybody, I don't even remember. If you ask me right now, do I get hate? I can't remember someone who gave me hate. So like, it's just lovely. It's lovely to have such a nice community. But I do find that in Ratoath, where I live, which is just outside of Dublin, everybody is really, really nice. They're really good. They're so welcoming and so kind in general. They really support you when you need it, and when you don't, and when you're thriving. They're just amazing people in general.
Yeah, it must be great to have that support, especially of your town.
Yeah.
But do you find like with your peers, like just getting that exposure to the music is kind of sometimes all they need? Like with you, when you heard Catherine Jenkins, then it was like, oh wow, this new world.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of a big reason why a lot of what I released. So I have released two singles, sorry, so far. I have released 3, but one was a charity single at Christmas time, so I'm not going to talk about that for a second. But the 2 singles that I released were classical crossover versions of pop songs. And my whole thinking behind that was, I always loved these songs. So if I put the classical spin on it, can I make it more contemporary, make it more suited for the younger generation? That was my whole plan in my head, to reintroduce it back, because it's very easy for someone my age or younger or a little bit older to turn around and say, oh no, I'm not listening to that, it's this, it's that.
Yeah.
But if you give them a reason to kind of have something to connect, something to relate to it, they might just give it that extra listen. And I know people who, I like some of my friends who would never listen to classical music ever, they'd be like big into rap or R&B and stuff like that, who'll have my songs on their playlist. I mean, that's kind of just, it just gives, it tells me that I was right in thinking of bringing back, or putting the classical style on the new songs. So yeah, it's just, it's really nice to kind of know that I'm helping them understand that classical music isn't just Italian arias. It can be so much more than that, and it can be that as well, and it's just as beautiful. But yeah, I think it's a nice way of breaking it back down into the younger generation.
Yeah, and I think like before, it didn't used to be such as big separation. Like now they feel very, like 2 separate worlds. It's like, oh, classical. You used to have like Elvis or someone who was classically trained, so it was a lot more like acceptable to do that.
Yeah, but I also think that people don't realize how important classical training is, because the likes of Ariana Grande and Lady Gaga, they're all classically trained. It's the basis.
Even now, you're right.
Yeah, they are. And people don't realize that. So when you're doing your gradings or you're doing your exams or whatever, you're not doing a classical exam just to be a classical singer. You're doing your classical exam for your technique and for your basis, to keep your vocal cords healthy.
Yes.
Which is obviously the most important thing, because we've all heard the horror stories of people losing their voices and getting infections and tearing things and but that's what it's doing, teaching us how to prevent that happening. And now there obviously is the cases that people can do everything right and still be unlucky,
of course.
But in general, it's really just teaching us how to sing and sing properly. And I think that's what people don't understand. And I try to explain to my students a lot, because I would have students that I have a couple that are I teach from 8 years old right up until adults. And I try to explain to the younger ones, particularly the adults kind of understand it. But the younger ones, I try to say, just because I am teaching you, I don't know, some classical song, doesn't mean that I don't want you to do other songs. It doesn't mean that I just want you to sing classical music. It just means that I want you to have a nice rounded idea of what you want. Because, for example, when I started singing lessons, I was 12 when I started, and I walked in not wanting to do anything classical, right? So I remember my first singing lesson, and basically how the exams with the Royal Irish Academy of Music are broken up is into musical theatre and pop and classical. So they're the 2 exams. And my singing teacher said to me, there's 2 exams, maybe we'll just do both. And I was like, oh, what are they? And she said musical theatre and pop. And I was like, yeah. And then she was like, classical. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, and I want you to learn this song. And it was Nella Fantasia. And I was like, oh God, classical music. I was only 12, like I had no idea. But anyway, I went home and I learned it, and I actually loved it straight away. It was so, it just came so naturally to me. And now not easily, because I found the Italian really difficult to learn at the start. But the actual music just came so naturally to me. And I just knew from then that that's where I was that was kind of my niche. But I love it. Like, now I would never look back. I still love other genres like musical theatre and pop, and I love singing Disney songs and all of that as well. But I think I would have never have gone into classical so early if I hadn't had that little push. So my singing teacher's name is Helen McHugh, so shout out to her, because she's the reason I'm here. Yeah.
So do you still study with her, or do you have new teachers now?
Yeah, so I'm still with Helen. I also train under Rob Johnston, who is from London. So he teaches me remotely, obviously because I don't fly to London for every lesson. So he trains me now as well. So yeah, they're my two teachers now at the moment.
Now tell us a little bit more about your singles, because the first one, I like that you chose things that, like you mentioned, weren't necessarily standard classical crossover.
Yeah.
So the first one was, I think it's called Every Time. It's a Britney Spears track. So how did you listen to it and envision this would sound good as classical crossover?
Yeah. This is also a story. So I remember listening to this song when I was very young. So maybe 5, 6. Whenever she just released it, I can't remember the exact age or the exact year, but I remember going shopping one day with my mom. Vividly remember this, being in the back of the car and the song coming on, and I was obviously very into singing, and like I had been already very into singing at that time, and my mom said to me, you should change that and make it your own and then sing it, because I think the Britney Spears version is obviously, my mom didn't mean into a classical crossover piece, but she just meant maybe bring it up key, bring it up a semitone or whatever, just kind of change it into to make it different for myself. And then kind of just stuck it. It's always been in the back of my head, and I love Britney Spears, love her music. And then I started working with my producer, Mark Cahill, and he was like, let's do a few songs. And I said to him, can we do some classical crossover pieces? Can we change new songs into classical crossover pieces? And he was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So he was like, send me over a list and we'll work off what we have. Every Time first on my list straight away. And this was like a good few years after now. My mom had said that to me. This is like probably about 5 years after, and longer, about 7 years. And it ended up just being perfect, like a perfect song to start with. And it sounds really cool as a classical crossover piece. For those who haven't seen it, it's on my YouTube channel to check it out if you want to. But it really worked. It translated really well. And I loved kind of recreating it and pulling out things, putting things back in different ways, adding in the string lines, adding in the percussion. I loved it. The key changes, everything. I loved flipping it to keep it as Every Time, but turn it into my Every Time. Do you get me?
I completely, because when I listen to songs, I'll just think like, how could it be done differently? So I totally, I love it.
Yeah.
So the other thing you got to do, I guess, probably based on Britain's Got Talent, you got an invitation to perform at the Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah, it was actually, I'm sure I was seen through Britain's Got Talent, but it didn't have anything to do with Britain's Got Talent. It was a man called Graham Hubbard who invited me over to sing at a Christmas concert. And yeah, I sang a solo in the Royal Albert Hall, which was absolutely incredible. Yeah, it was amazing. I'll never forget it. It was so cool. I remember walking on the stage for the tech rehearsal, and it was amazing. I just looked out and it was like a big, I can literally picture it. So cool. It was huge. And I was just thinking, how am I going to do this? Like, how? This is just beyond anything I could have even imagined, because I was 15 and I had seen pictures of it online, but the pictures never do it justice. There was literally people right up to the sides of me, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be so cool. No, I was nervous, but I was like, this is going to be the best experience ever. And it was. It was amazing. I actually have a bit of a horror story now.
Oh.
Yeah, and I've told this story only once before ever. It was actually with Mary Jess. I don't know. Do you know Mary Jess?
Yes, she's really lovely.
Yeah. Well, I had to sing. Well, I didn't have to. My in-ears didn't work on the night, so I sang deaf with a live
Oh my
orchestra.
goodness.
Yeah. Which was obviously a bit scary. But I somehow found a way to disconnect myself from the initial panic, and just get on with singing. And thank God I'd done as much practice as I had. I was practicing every day, multiple times a day, for that performance, because I obviously wanted it to be perfect. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yes.
But yeah, it was very scary, but I somehow managed. My muscle memory got me through it. And the video is actually on YouTube as well for this. And I don't know if other people would notice, but I can notice at the start I look slightly unnerved, and then I kind of relaxed into it a bit, because I kind of said to myself, Leah, cop on, you have to get through this now. And I did, and I'm glad I did. And it doesn't take away from the experience. Obviously, it would have been better for the
right.
Yeah, but it didn't take away from the experience at all. It was an amazing experience, and it wouldn't have turned it negative, nothing like that. I'd never think of it as a negative experience. It was amazing, incredible. Like, I hope I get that back there at some stage.
And was that your first time with a full orchestra, or?
Yeah, as a soloist. Yeah, I've done musical theatre shows before, yeah, but not singing on my own. Yeah, it was so cool.
An incredible feeling. And then is that where you kind of got the idea that you really wanted to have, I think it was called the film harmonic orchestra on your singles?
Yeah, it's I record my singles with the Film Harmonic Orchestra in Prague. And it's actually the orchestra and the Royal Albert Hall weren't the reason why, but I wanted a really, really good orchestra, and they're incredible. Because I want my music to be high quality overall. I don't want anything to be weak. So yeah, they're absolutely amazing, and they were also on my second single, which was Fix You, which was a classical crossover version of Fix You by Coldplay, which I released only in September 2020, which was so much fun to do as well. Again, I changed it up, did my own kind of thing on it, and yeah, I think everyone really appreciates the changes, and it's quite nerve-wracking releasing music that is so much loved by so many people, because you wonder, are you going to step on anyone's toes by making it, by changing it, because these are classic songs that millions of people know and love. So it's kind of a bit like, oh no, like, is it too classic for me to put to touch? Like, should I just leave it? But I took the leap of faith now, particularly with Fix You, and I was quite nervous releasing it, but I believed in it and I loved it. I love what I had done. I just hoped that everyone else would as well, and they ended up loving it as well. So that's the main thing, I suppose. It's really nice having other people appreciate the work that you've put into something, even if that, whether it be an original or a cover or something that you've changed up yourself. It's just really nice to know that other people believe in how you hear music as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. And tell us about your music video, because that was a stunning music video you had to go with it. Thank as well.
You. Yeah. So yeah, the Fix You video, I start off at the beginning in a boat in the middle of a lake. Now, I have never been in a boat on my own before that day. So that was interesting. I had to practice in my tracksuit beforehand, because I was like, I can't fall into this, because I need this dress for the next scene.
Later, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't take any risks. So I practiced in the boat, and then I got into it in my dress, and it was all perfect. It went smoothly, thank God. It did take me a while to row myself back in. I had no problem getting out, but then getting back in, I was like, I think I'm stuck. But my dad was there to help me get out of the boat and everything, so I didn't fall, which was thank God, because I would have gone on my snot if I didn't have my dad. but then, yeah, so after the boat scene, it kind of goes through gardens of a gorgeous house of a friend of ours. And then at the end, or toward the middle to the end of the song, is under a tree and a big terraced area with lights hanging there from the ceiling.
Yes.
And my mom and dad and brother and a lighting man that I had on the day and his child spent, I think, 4 hours on the day hanging those lights individually. So I really, really mean it when I say I couldn't have done that video without them, because I couldn't have. And we were all trying to tie electrical wire around the lights all week. We'd been doing it all week because we had something like 300 lights to hang from.
Oh, bless.
Branches and leaves. Yeah. So, but yeah, it really paid off in the end. All of us have said it. It really, all the hard work was definitely worth it when it came to that video, because it just looks amazing. The first time that I saw the video after it had been edited, I just thought, wow, I love it. I really, really love it.
Gorgeous.
It was definitely worth it. Yeah.
Now tell us, you said your brother just helped you, and he was so cute on your Britain's Got Talent audition. So is he musical at all?
He was, he is. So he's not as cute anymore. He'll always be my little brother, but he'll never be my cute little brother from Britain's Got Talent again. But he grew up in stage school, like myself, in the same stage schools as I was in, and we actually played parts against each other. So, for example, he was Oliver and I was Dodger in Oliver the musical. And that was so cool. That was a really nice experience to have on stage with my brother. And also, I don't know if you know the musical Seussical. It's based off the Dr. Seuss books. Yeah. But I was a main part in that as well, and he had a main part too. And it was just really nice. We did so much together when we were younger. Now, when he turned into a teenager, he kind of gave up on the singing side of things, which is understandable because boys' voices break and they kind of lose that bit of confidence for a while. But he actually has just recorded a song with another little teenage girl, Amy Rigney, and he's actually rapping on it. And they've made a music video and everything, and it's out. So it's actually a cover of "See You Again." Do you know that song for Paul Walker? That was.
I don't think so. Yeah. No.
I'm sure you do, because like, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
Oh yes. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so they recorded that and he did a rap on it, and it's class. Like, it's really good.
That's super awesome. So yeah. What's next for you? Obviously, you've mentioned your gap year kind of, changed your plans a bit. But what's next in terms of recording? Any concerts once lockdown ends?
Yes. So I actually have a live stream concert coming out on the 30th of May. This year, which is a full hour-long concert with myself, and I have Mark Cahill from the Ivory Sessions joining me on for accompaniment on the piano. So that'll be available on the Ivory Sessions YouTube page and on Facebook, or YouTube channel, I should say. And then after that, I'm hoping to have a single released very soon. So if you're interested in hearing my new single, follow me on my social media accounts. Which I'm sure will be down below or something.
Yes.
And also then hopefully I'm obviously starting college in September, which I'm very excited about, because it's nice to get a bit of normality back.
Yes.
But apart from that, I'm so excited to have my live concerts back once we can have real life audiences back in theatres, which I'm hoping will be this side of Christmas, hopefully. I'm sure we'll have some capacity in this side of Christmas, and I will never be off the stage. You'll never see me because I'll always be on stage. If you want me, you'll have to come to see me in a show. That's what I'll be telling all my friends and all my family. I'm living on stage now. See you later.
Yeah, once you get back on, that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, as you mentioned, we'll have all your links to share. Thank you so much for chatting with us today, Leah.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me on. It was such a pleasure.
It was such a pleasure. And you also sang at that lovely collaboration concert we did, and we know we'd love to have you back in the future. So
thank you so much. I'd be delighted to come back.
Well, anytime you have a standing invitation, so just come back anytime.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You have a wonderful rest of your day, Leah.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed today's interview. Please join us again next week, same time. And if you do enjoy our content, go ahead and hit subscribe. And we look forward to seeing you at our Sound of Crossover concert this July and also in September.